And one person ends up being the caretaker, and you can end up being a caretaker for many years in very difficult situations. And I'm just using this as an example because I happen to know people, that are or recently been in this situation. And and that can be very, very difficult. They're having to choose, not on a daily basis, but sometimes on a minute to minute basis. Am I going to choose love or am I going to choose fear? And this is where the rubber meets the road for them. This is where all of their learning has been channeling them. And are they ready to face the deepest, deepest challenges and find out what still hasn't, what still can trigger them? Where is there still a lot of fear operating? What level of the rock have they gotten down to here
Right.
to get to the bottom? And I have, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just have amazing um, inspiration from some of these people that are not caving into the triggers. They're not. They're seeing love and not fear in what they're doing. It's very hard when you have a mate that's dying or a child that's dying or a parent that's dying that you're very close to. These things are challenging. And so they've learned to have compassion and love without giving into fear, the intimidation of fear.
You summed that up so beautifully. My own experience as a caregiver for my mom through 8, 9 years Alzheimer's, teaching me an entirely new vocabulary of responsiveness versus reactiveness. Uh,
I
and
bet.
then an end of life caregiver for my father, and making decisions. And you know, with my dad, my number one priority was to always let him know he was my dad. Our roles weren't reversed. Although I was doing things that he was no longer capable of doing for himself, he was my dad, and he was the one that I looked to. That just because physically he was incapable of doing this stuff, uh, in essence, my father and always my father, my respect, my love, my admiration, and I think that made such a difference with
Yeah.
him to be able to go through this declining state with your dignity intact.
Yes. Bravo, Eric. It's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And you really faced all of the triggers. You faced the triggers, and in facing those triggers, tell us, can you, or would it take too long for you to really sit with it and figure it out or to see what it is? But what are some of the things you learned about yourself by bypassing fear and going into love like that? What did you learn about yourself?
Funny bypassing, um, because you can grit your teeth and try to navigate, especially with dealing with someone with Alzheimer's. Um, I'm not going to say this, I'm not going to do this. And it can be very stressful because you're attempting to bypass, suppress. And then you find yourself yelling at your own child or your spouse or your cat or your dog because
Mm.
it needs to go somewhere. So it didn't make any difference if I was kind to my mom, but I was mean to my cat or my dog or my spouse. Um, it just meant that I bypassed reacting to my mom and I reacted to someone else.
Um,
And the big realization was I had to, as you said, not confront that fear, but love myself through the fear and say, you know what, I'm scared. I don't know if I'm going to be the caregiver my mom needs. I don't know if I can make these end of life decisions for my dad. I didn't know until I did. And I just did it. But that most important thing to me was not bypassing all of that fear so that it would come out and be expressed towards someone else, or that I would. And even then, I found out in the last few days few months with my dad, I started suffering tremendous anxiety, breathing issues, uh, insomnia. And on top of that, as someone who, a meditation teacher, I found that I was suffering imposter syndrome, that I'm suffering all the things that I teach people how to navigate through. So I must be a horrible yogi. I must be a horrible Course in Miracles student. Um, but because of the practice, specifically of the Course, more than anything, it was learning to love myself through the fear, through the dark emotions, not denying them and not projecting them outwards, but accepting them, investigating them, seeing where they came from, and responding to them gently, kindly. Being kind to ourselves is a wonderful quality to cultivate because
It sounds like you rose above the battlefield.
I hope so.
It
I think
sounds
my
like
dad,
you felt your feelings, you didn't bypass them or push them away, just what we were talking about earlier. And you felt everything, and it sounds like it helped you love yourself. The love in you was able to come up. Is that correct? Am I
you're correct. You're correct.
okay?
Um,
This is an incredible example of exactly what we've been talking about.
if we were to put this same battlefield of, let's stick with this term caretaker. What if those who I once viewed as my political opposition, I was their caretaker? My job is to care for you. And
Yeah.
you were,
Ah, perfect.
uh, you inspired it. Um, because you know what? I didn't want my mom to have Alzheimer's. I
No.
didn't want my father to die from, and I don't want someone to vote for someone that I don't like. I don't want someone to vote for an entire belief system that is in opposition to where my greatest values lie. But if I'm their caretaker, I care for you in spite of what's going on. I care for you even though I can think you are suffering the delusion of this opposite belief. I can still care for you. And I can, as Ram Dass said, I can help, we can walk each other home.
We can walk each other home. That's right. I'd forgotten he said that. But see, there's the lesson of the whole hour we've just spent with each other right there. What you expressed about your family, and now you've transferred that learning over to what the topic was today, which is politicians, politics and politicians. That's really beautiful, Eric. Thank you so much for using the word caregivers with the people we disagree with, or
You
even
gave
if
me,
we agree with them. However you want to, either side of that you want to take on. To caretake is to offer love, isn't it?
it
Instead
is,
of fear.
instead of fear. Beautifully
Yes.
said.